Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome all of you. Mr. Ellison, welcome back. Mr. Zeitcher, in your testimony you emphasized the significance of climate policy and its impact on capital allocation. To me, this seems like a disguised version of Operation Choke Point, where regulators are picking and choosing what industries have access to banking services, including access to financing. Can you explain how regulatory attempts to impose climate policies on the private sector can affect investment decisions and economic performance?
Yeah, such regulatory efforts, particularly aimed at the fossil energy industry and others as well, would have the effect of distorting capital allocation by distorting investment decisions, lending decisions, and all the rest. And as I discussed briefly in my oral statement and more extensively in my prepared statement, the aggregate effect would be a less valuable capital stock producing less valuable basket of goods and services, a smaller economy, less labor productivity, less employment, lower wages. There's simply nothing to be gained, regardless of what you believe about the existence or severity of a purported climate crisis. These initiatives cannot possibly have any effect on climate phenomena, let's say by the end of the century. And so they really do represent all cost and no benefit.
Thank you. One of the concerns I've got is the fiduciary responsibility of these investment groups, whether it's BlackRock or State Street or Vanguard or any other entities, big banks, whatever. One of the things it says, one of the comments I see here in some of the stuff I've been reading here is that corporate boardrooms have been turned into partisan platforms where political agendas overshadow sound financial management. I think in one of the articles here that we've pulled from Forbes about a year ago, it talked like a 14% decrease in the valuation of these companies. Mr. Zeitcher, in your testimony, you talk about ESG funds lagging behind other funds by 2 basis points per year. So my comment is, or my concern is, I guess, there's a fiduciary responsibility that these companies have for administering these funds. And Mr. Cunningham, Mr. Copeland, Mr. Allen, one of you want to answer the question. But it seems like to me like they've opened themselves up to a really big problem unless they're totally disclosing the fact that ESG investment does not make more money, does not give you a better return. But if there's an agenda here that's being forced on them from outside, it needs to be disclosed, and investors need to know that you can expect less returns. Is that a fair comment, Mr. Cunningham?
Well, I do think that special interest groups have asserted themselves and have pressured a lot of funds to elevate the priority of ESG. I think many funds, there's evidence that indicates that funds have believed that they get some private advantage from presenting themselves that way.
Well, even Mr. Fink the other day with BlackRock made the comment that he was ashamed about his investment policy with regards to ESG. So, I mean, they're starting to, I think Vanguard has pulled out of the net zero over in Europe. So they're beginning to understand that there's concern. And so my point is, they have a fiduciary responsibility to the people that they're investing this money for. Are they showing this? Are they disclosing this? Are you aware of this? Such that they can keep themselves from being sued.
Yeah, it's commonly said that following ESG practices is good for the long-term economic interests of a company or of a fund, but the empirical evidence doesn't support that assertion. I'm sure the people believe it's true, but the data don't bear it out. There is some evidence that there's a correlation between certain practices and certain outcomes, like certain board compositions and corporate performance, but scant evidence of any causation. And incidentally, a lot of proponents of these shareholder proposals don't even provide that rationalization. Under the SEC's current approach, they're allowed to require companies to put in proposals on any socially significant topic. So I think you've pinpointed a very serious problem for the funds. I think they recognize the problem and they're struggling to resolve it.
Well, I think Mr. Fink's comment makes that point, and I just have one other comment here, and it's just a comment. I think, Mr. Copeland, you made the comment with regards to laws and rules and guidance, And I'm very concerned that the SEC uses guidance, kind of like what the CFPB does, to try and scare, bully, and intimidate people in doing things when the guidance does not have the force of law.
Gentleman's
With that,
time
Mr.
has
Chairman, I
expired.
yield back.